Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the holiday episode of the Gen X show. I'm your host, Gen X, and this episode is a special one. So I called in some amazing folks. And I've noticed over the course of the past few years, thanks to the pandemic, we've had such a huge influx of indie books coming out, indie publishers coming out with some amazing things, and self-published creatives dropping a great masterpieces. So, and although we have some major publishers, out there, those that will remain nameless, they've had their day in the spotlight. And I think it's time for the indie creatives to take over, and publishers hitting it out the park are plentiful and they are selling really well. And why is that? Well, simply put, they are true to the craft and continue to give collectors and fans what they want, and some of them that didn't know what they needed. So today on the Gen X show, we have an amazing panel to discuss how indie comics save the universe. We have esteemed panelists in their own right to discuss their past projects and why the indie arm of the industry is so necessary right now. But before we start, please follow all the guests on their socials and follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Instagram at GenX_comics. Again, GenX_comics. And visit my website at genxcomics.net, where I'll be providing new news on my virtual cons and the Gen X magazine that will be published very soon, which is amazing. Yeah, it's kind of like Wizard, but a little bit different, a little twist. So today I have an amazing group of friends who are doing their thing in the comic book world, from being a comic book collector personality to publishing their own books. And you'll find this dope panel to be folks that you really do need to follow. So if you're not doing that already, do so right now. Well, maybe not right now. Wait until the show is over. So I'd like to invite them into the Gen X show for the first time. Some of them are old friends as well. So I'd like to thank the folks who are here as you see them on the panel. Today we have Adrian Quintero. He joins us from Austin, Texas, and he's an exceptional artist, collector, vinyl music enthusiast. He's a graphic designer, comic nerd, and entrepreneur. And next we have Caitlyn Yarsky. She is an amazing all-around talent, has one of my favorite indie books out, Living Hell, currently. Caitlyn has worked in the video game industry, worked for DC, Dark Horse, Image, and Boom Studios during her career. Her unique style and artistry is very human. It captures all the emotion and complexities of who we are, and you can find her contributions within books like Wonder Woman, Olympus Rebirth, Catwoman, Black Hammer Reborn, Coyote's Bliss, Buffy Every Generation, and her own kick-ass book, Living Hell. And thanks for joining me, Caitlyn. Last but not least, our next guest, Tyler Boss, is a new friend of mine. He's a great talent, blazing through the industry with titles including You'll Do Bad Things, that's coming in March. He's writing that book, and I am stoked to get my hands on it. Hopefully he'll give us a little bit of insight of what that will be and how we can get a pre-order if possible. Dead Dogs Bite, 4 Kids Walk into a Bank, and What's the Furthest Place From Here, with his frequent collaborator, Matthew Rosenberg. Oh, and then I forget to mention that beyond all the books, he also has been nominated for an Eisner. So by the way, Tyler, we know we talked about this, but I hope the Bills go far this season. So he's also a lover of the Buffalo Bills, and he's from Buffalo. The topic at hand is obviously indie comics saving the universe and how the industry is benefiting from it. But before we start, I want to make sure that we at least get your origin story. I think that's an important element of our show. So why don't we start off with Caitlyn and then Tyler, if y'all wouldn't mind talking about your origin story, and then we'll definitely jump in with Adrian giving us his origin story. So Caitlyn, tell us where you're from, where you're at, and how'd you get into this?
Sure. Well, I was born in Brooklyn and raised on Long Island. I was upstate New York for a really long time. And I started off in kind of like fine arts and illustration world. And that's what I majored in, illustration, and then got into comics kind of in a roundabout way. I started in games when I got out of school, and did a lot of art, did a lot of animation, and all sorts of things for like mobile games. A lot of SpongeBob. Made so many SpongeBob games. And then I think I was there for about 6 years, and eventually I realized I wanted to do something else. And I kind of created my first like a 10-page comic on my own. It was like I wrote it and drew it and kind of used it as a portfolio piece and started sending it around everywhere I could. And eventually I put it on. So Boom Studios had a Facebook. They're on their Facebook wall. They said they had like a submission thing, and they said put your pages up. And then Sean Lewis was looking for artists, and he had already written a book called Saints for Image and was looking for more people. And he went through that list that people just put up on the, because it's so hard to find people, writers or artists, there's no one way to do it. So yeah, he liked my pages and he sent me an email with the script for Coyotes, and that's kind of how I got started.
Awesome. That's a great origin story. And your books are, as I said, they're very humanistic, and I love there's a uniqueness to them. So I'm glad that somebody looked at their page and was like, "You are the one. You're the chosen one." So that's cool. That's awesome.
A lot.
Hey, Tyler, how about you? Tell us your origin story.
Sure. Yeah. Grew up, like you said, in Buffalo. First 18 years of my life. Was avid comics reader from like as long as I can remember, and kind of actually grew up a bit of a DC kid, but I didn't have a comic shop in Buffalo, so the way I got all my comics was my grandmother would go to flea markets and like secondhand sales, and she would just bring me random issues. So it would be like an issue in the middle of like a 3-part run, and the fun part I always liked was reading it and then trying to make up what happened before and what happened afterwards, and sort of filling in that blanks of like you're getting like just the middle episode, and that kind of feels where like if you want to say origin story, like of practicing the craft a little bit, right, where it's the same thing of smashing action figures together and playing with the toys. But I ended up going to the School of Visual Arts in New York City, where I studied under David Mazzucchelli and Klaus Janson and Gary Panner, Nick Bertozzi, and David Sandlin, to name a few, and worked at a comic shop while I was going there called Forbidden Planet, where I met Matthew Rosenberg, who's become sort of my longtime collaborator. And yeah, I guess got out of school, was answered actually a coworker of mine told me that Michael Lark, the artist on Lazarus at the time, was looking for background dickers. The person who told me was like on Tumblr and saw it, and I did the test pages and ended up getting the job. And so that was kind of where I started. And between that, paying the bills a little bit with Ink and Michael's backgrounds, and then doing my first book with Matthew Rosenberg, Four Kids Walk Into a Bank. We did that with Black Mass Studios. So it was those two things at the same time was kind of where I started, and yeah, it's gone up and to the right from there.
So Adrian, you want to introduce yourself to the folks?
Yeah, thank you, GenX. I can barely keep up with what I want to read. I'll go to the public library and check out, just randomly get a book. Just if I see something, yes, covers do matter. Sometimes I literally judge books by their covers. If it looks really cool, I'll grab it. So I literally do that. My name is Adrian. I run almostvintage.comics on Instagram, Almost Vintage on Whatnot. I've been a reseller. The pandemic, the lockdown got me digging through my boxes of gold upstairs, seeing what I could part with. I started selling on Whatnot, started buying too much on Whatnot as well. I met GenX there. We found that we had a lot in common, and I've been just tagging along with him wherever he goes, wherever he needs me, here on his channels and his shows and stuff. So I've had I never really thought I was going to be some kind of comic book personality, but I feel like I'm slowly becoming that. I am a graphic designer and illustrator. Here in Austin, Texas, I have my client base is mainly the local live music scene that's here. So I've done a lot of band marketing, album covers, vinyl covers, just digital covers for like Spotify and stuff like that for streaming. But I am grateful. I'm working with that. I'm a lover of music. I have so many songs, and from digital to vinyl to cassette tapes and CDs and stuff like that. So I'm just a collector at heart, I believe. So and like Gen X said before, I am a collector mainly of a lot of independent titles. You list them, and I think Dark Horse and I think Image Comics had a big part in that through the 90s. And till today, still to this day, I'm grabbing titles from those publishers. And then Kickstarters, things like Kickstarters have gotten me into that. I feel like that's even another niche of independent, a way to get independent titles. That's almost super indie or something. There needs to be a new name for that niche right there. Just getting, I mean, it's other than crowdfunding, crowdfunded type of projects, but I have dabbled in a little bit of that as well, and excited. I get some stuff coming in at the beginning of the year, supporting Jim Food and with his new one, and Jack Harris Jr. with Terminus Vale. So I'm really excited about what the future holds with some of those titles. But I'm happy to be here. Happy to hear what y'all have to say and share.
I would like to transition also to your projects. And the reason why I want to do that is because I think that your imprint right now and currently what you all have accomplished over the years is really an amazing a tribute really to indie comics, but also to the craft at large. So would y'all mind talking about what projects you're currently working on, what projects you've worked on, and a little bit of synopsis for each of those? The ones are your favorite ones. I know that's hard to do, like, you know, having your own child and saying which one is your favorite. They're all your favorite, of course, but tell us a little about maybe some of the pointed projects, maybe upcoming projects, and maybe some of the ones that you are most known for.
Do you want to start, Caitlyn?
Oh, sure. So yeah, I guess my favorite up until now has been Bliss, which was my second image series with Sean Lewis, the guy who first emailed me. And he and I worked together on the story and the visual, you know, like the everything. We were very co-collaborative. It was very we were more of a partnership, you know. It was really nice to have input in what was going on in the story and being able to shape the world the way I wanted to. You know, there were points where I could just be like, so these mobsters, could they be lizard people? And he was like, yeah, okay. So it was kind of nice just to be able to like really feel like I was part of that, you know, process. So yeah, that was really great. And I got to really try to, you know, push the boundaries of my own style and try to figure out what my own voice really was, and I learned a lot from Coyotes. I can't even look at Coyotes now, but I learned so much from that, and I kind of applied it to Bliss. So I feel like really proud of that series. And yeah, but I guess my favorite is changing because it's the current series I'm working on called Living Hell, and it's my first time writing and drawing. And that's just been like so fulfilling and amazing, and I can't wait to do more of that. So yeah.
Yeah, and you're doing everything pretty much for a couple of things, but you're pretty much at the helm, driving the vehicle.
Yeah, everything except letters. I just really wanted Clayton involved. Clayton, or he's my best friend, so just like,
Awesome.
and he's also like, you know, he's Clayton Coles. He's like an amazing letterer. So,
Rochester's own too, yeah.
yeah, that's how we met. Yep.
It's so cool. Yeah, I will say, I actually got the last Living Hell at my LCS, and someone was so upset when I grabbed the last one. So I
Oh
was like,
no.
I'm sure there'll be more reprints. So there are other LCSs you could travel to. Sorry. I felt so bad. It was a little kid. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Tyler, how about you?
Monster.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, like you said, I mean, and Kaylin kind of said this too. I mean, I really love all my projects, but for very different reasons. Whereas, you know, Four Kids was my first one, and then Dead Dog's Bite is a book where I did everything. But What's the Furthest Place From Here? My current book with Matthew, it's an ongoing series, and it feels, I feel lucky to get to do a series that's like now on issue 20, because I feel like a lot of artists don't get that kind of run to just work on their craft while also making a living at it. And so like it's the sort of thing where like not only do I feel stupid lucky to be able to make a book with, you know, one of my best friends that helps pay the bills and a story I'm passionate about, but like to have that kind of time where it's like you look at the first issue versus where I'm at now, and to me it seems like night and day. And it's I feel like that kind of like it's almost like a throwback to the idea of true patronage, like from people who buy the book are basically paying for me to have the privilege to practice and get better at my craft, to then hopefully turn it around and give them a better product or, you know, a better comic for the sake of that. Like it really does feel like almost like I don't know, like a true hand-in-hand partnership with the readership in that way. So that's really, really cool. And it's also in turn because of, the book's done well enough for us that like instead of paying off some more school loans like I should have, I took the money and started paying Adriano Turtolucini to Turtulici to I'm sorry Adriano to draw a new book that I have coming out in March 26th called You'll Do Bad Things. And it's a 6-issue limited horror series, kind of a slasher send up of the Italian slasher movies of the 70s, giallo. And I'm excited for people to see that, if only because it's Adriano's work in it is I don't know, it's I think it's incredible. So I'm excited for people to get to see his stuff for the first time.
Now, Tyler, I also brought Adrian here because I know that your books, you coupled them with also some music as well. So I know he would be stoked. I know Adrian was probably going to be like stoked at kind of interviewing and helping interview, or at least giving his 2 cents and just the stuff that you've been able to collectively do with Rosenberg and just your titles there. Talk to me a little about your music piece, because I think that's also a unique area.
Yeah, I mean, it's better now. It's Best Laid Plans. The What's the Furthest Place From Here has a big music component to it, where it's our main cast of characters. They live in a record shop, and they don't. It's a post-apocalyptic world, but it's only populated by child gangs, and the gang sort of monikers are the businesses that they live in. So the kids who live in a bank all wear pig masks, and the kids who live in the movie theater, the only movie that plays is My Own Private Idaho, so they'll have like weird just like things from that. But our main group lives in a record shop, and so they all are obsessed with records, but since it's the end of the world, there's no record players or anything, so they've never actually heard it. And to couple with that, Matt used to run an indie sort of hardcore label before he got into comics. And so he really wanted to pair 7 inches with all of the issues. I mean, the title of the book itself is, the first line of the song Accident Prone by Jawbreaker, which is like a punk band. And we reached out actually to Blake to be like, hey, is it okay that we're doing this? Like, are you going to sue us? And he's like, no, that's cool. And then like, that's really exciting. Or not, he didn't say it was really exciting. He just said it was fine. But the thing that was really exciting was we told him that we were planning on doing this record thing. We were going to try and pair each issue with a record. He's like, oh, I've actually been messing around with this cover of Lionel Richie's All Night Long. Like, do you guys want to use that? And we're like, yeah, please. So we've been able to pair, ended up doing 7 of them in total. And I won't go into the nightmare that it was, trying to make records at the height of the pandemic. You can Google why that was a horrible idea and to try and do. But now they're all done and finally available in shops, like literally as of last month. They should all be in shops. But yeah, really cool. We had Screaming Females, Joyce Manor, Blake from Jawbreaker. The final record had Sharon Van Etten on one side and Julian Baker on the other. So it's a cool mix of a lot of different musicians. And they're all just covers of other songs. So it's Julian Baker doing 1979 by the Pumpkins is fun, and I don't know. It was all Matt. Matt had to deal with a lot of I would say 90% of the problems and fielding questions. I got to just be along for the fun ride. So for me, it was fun. For Matt, it was even more. Vinyl production in this day and age is it's better now, but at the time we were trying to do it, it was not easy.
I bet having to coordinate all those folks and just even during the pandemic, I'm sure that was like a huge hurdle for sure. I wanted to show some of y'all's work. You'll Do Bad Things is coming out in March, and you are the writer. I cannot wait. This looks really, really up my alley. And so I'm excited about this. And a quick synopsis is basically, it's all in here, but basically it's 10 years since the release of He Came In With a Smile, the true crime smash hit that chronicled the brutal murders committed by the nursery rhyme killer. But in the decades since its release, its author Seth Holmes has produced another title. He wants to write a story with a happy ending, but every time his fingers click clack across the keyboard, it always ends in the character's death. That is so intense, and so I'm excited to see what happens in You'll Do Bad Things in March. What was the I guess the motivation behind this one?
I love bad horror movies. Like I have a weird, there's a lot of there's, if you're familiar with Vinegar Syndrome or some of these other sort of like I don't know what you would call them, almost like restoration slash like DVDs, Blu-rays for you know, kind of forgotten, like to tie it even to like indie comics, it's just, you know, people with, you know, $100 and a dream and some friends go out and shoot these movies and stuff. And so I've always had an interest in trying to just do something like that, where it's, you know, a play in the slasher genre, and I'll also do these sort of giallo, sort of the visuals of it, like the neon colored blood and the really sort of like high contrast scenes, you know, watching the Argento movie, and it's, you know, these great stills where they're like really, really beautiful shots. And then the story surrounding them can kind of be a little bit nonsense. And so in this, I want it to be, you're towing a weird line because you want it to be a little tongue in cheek, silly, but also it needs to be, you know, trying to be a horror book and actually like freak people out, or, you know, be horrifying, while also trying to pair it with, you know, very like sexy Italian visuals, and having that be even like, you know, Guido Crepax or these other Italian cartoonists, Alticho Micheluzzi, and like the whole school of Italian cartooning. I don't know, it just felt like it would pair up great with doing a slasher comic, and that's what we're trying to do.
Wow, that's actually awesome insight. I actually thought the same exact thing, that type of style of cartooning, when I saw the pages, the preview pages.
Mm-hmm.
March for sure, correct? I don't have to worry about.
Nope, it's done. Yeah, we're
okay.
we're well, issues 1, 2, 3. They're in the can. We're halfway
Sweet.
through 4. It's coming out.
Okay, cool. So everybody, make sure you put that on calendar. March, jump on it. I also wanted to share again one of my favorite folks, Caitlyn, and their book as well. We have Living Hell, and just a quick synopsis is basically, hell is not just a place; it's a prison, a realm where demons have lived in exile for eons. A few of them find a way back in the human world where they hide in plain sight. And Jerome was one of the lucky few to escape and start a new life. He sure did. And for the sake of his daughter, Jerome is determined to stay out of trouble. But when he comes face to face with one of hell's bounty hunters, his plans go awry. So let me show you a little about what I was talking about earlier, which is Caitlyn's book here. Amazing artwork here. Just really cool. I also love the way that you center a lot, specifically like the diversity in your books has also been something that I've also talked about, mentioned before. I just think that you are very connected and very careful about like what you put on the pages, and that they represent really well. So I just wanted to show some folks some of your artwork. They're very stylized. I can tell a Caitlyn Yarsky book for sure. I haven't seen this style at all. So this is really cool. You want to talk about this book?
Yeah, so I've always loved mythology and folklore. You know, I read a lot of fantasy growing up and science fiction, and I just wanted to bring a lot of those elements into whatever my first story was going to be. But I also kind of wanted to, you know, I grew up, you know, there's a lot of divorce and stuff in my family, but my dad and stepmom have a really great relationship, and my half sibling and I, we all give each other a hard time all the time. Like it's just like a constant like insult comic session every time we're, you know, hanging out together, and it's just really funny, and we make each other laugh. And I kind of wanted to bring that dynamic in because I haven't seen a lot of, you know, family dynamics like that in comics or just in general. So I thought that would be really a kind of a fun thing to take from my own life. And it's sort of the first rule of writing anyway. So I figured it was a good place to start for me. So, you know, there's a lot of like lighthearted joking around and just like, you know, enjoying being a family. And of course, there's like this darker aspect with the mom and her theories and everything. But I kind of wanted to have likable characters, even if they were doing bad things throughout the series, and you cared about what happened to them and you cared about their relationships. And so, yeah, it's kind of a mix between that and my love of like fantasy and folklore and stuff.
I would love to hear what your thoughts were when I proposed the actual theme for this show. What were your initial thoughts about it? Like, what have you seen in your area, industry, and even in your own experiences regarding how the indie comics sphere is really navigating, whether you're independent and just self-publishing, or if you're indie working with a publisher? Anybody can take this.
I mean, as a collector, I'm always looking for like what's the next coolest thing? What can top what I just read kind of thing. I feel like that drives a lot of the independent titles, independent stories out there, at least from my perspective of a collector and a reader, an avid reader, um, that I, and somebody like either one of y'all here on the panel, Tyler and Caitlin, I read one thing and then I got to see what else you've done. James Tinian is a good one, and Jeff Lemire and Brubaker and Phillips and whatever they do. I'm like, oh my God, that blew my mind. I want my mind to be blown again. So I go out and we just hunt for the next the next story. As in we, I mean me. Me. That's the way I do it. And if the art is good and the story's good and all of the layout and everything, then yeah, I'll just keep moving on with it. And if something's really not sitting with me, well, it's okay. To me, my rules are it's okay not to finish a book, just to close it, turn it in, go do something, find something else. But that's what moves me as a collector and as a reader with independent titles.
How about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine you probably had a similar experience as me, Caitlin, where, with Image books or Dark Horse books, or I've never done a Boom book, but I've heard where it's, you're kind of free to do whatever you want to a certain extent. You're just, the only sort of edict is you're just trying to make the best book possible. Where with the big two or something, not that you can't experiment or do different things, but it's definitely, I wouldn't say you're more boxed in by you're part of a big machine as opposed to just you're doing your own thing. And so what I love about independent comics is it truly is just like, not that it's like a full meritocracy or something, but it's you're free to do your best work and kind of, I mean, as free as you can be in the structure of things. But I don't know, I'm rambling a little bit, but I think you're freed up to be able to do whatever you think is sort of the most compelling way to tell a story.
Yeah, I agree with that. All of that. I think the freedom is the biggest aspect to me of indie comics that makes it so special. I think one of the reasons I left video games was because, I mean, I still do some game work, but it's not like my main thing, because I realized how little opportunity you have for self-expression. Like, you can be part of a big machine and you can be part of a big vision, but you're not really telling your own story or expressing yourself in your own unique way. So it's a totally different thing, and I think that applies to a lot of other things. I think that applies to like movies and all sorts of things that can be kind of designed by committee, and indies just aren't like that, and it's kind of amazing. Like, I didn't realize, like, until I was thinking about it more, because this theme scared me a little, because I didn't grow up like reading comics religiously. Like, I've read some here and there, and I've been influenced by some, but it was more fantasy and sci-fi books and more animation and stuff like that. But I realized, when I was a kid, um, my dad and stepmom worked at this. They were word processors, which was like a thing in the '90s, at Deutsche Bank in New York City, and they had a friend who worked there whose name was David Borchardt, and he wrote a comic called Ghoul Island. And it was like this very heady, philosophical kind of introspective indie thing that he just did on his own, and it inspired me to draw and write my first thing in like 7th grade, which was really weird and wacky, but I won't but he started that, and I realized that like as I was thinking about this topic, and it's cool because it's indies are just they're these windows into people's worlds that you wouldn't get otherwise, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the beauty of it is that you don't have a industry giant like the two telling you what to do, but at the same time, you're allowed to kind of just basically without comics code on your back. That's old school, I know, but for those of you who don't recall, there used to be a comics code that restricted folks from doing certain things. But I think for indie creators that taking off the leash, I guess, off the proverbial comic book allows you as a creative to really dive into some like dark and heavy things and even some personal things, which leads me to the next question, which is, what do you think fans are craving for right now in the indie sphere and where they are? What are you seeing in cons? How are people navigating? Are they looking at mostly like fantasy, crime? We've seen a lot of crime noir kind of popping themselves up, and even some of the big two are adopting some of those and taking that material to kind of translate over to some of their work. But what do you think fans are looking for at this moment in time? What's really the big seller, so to speak, or even the most interested of folks? What genre are they looking at right now?
Anecdotally, I mean, this is just, I feel like we're coming off I feel like horror was having a really big moment for a while. You look at books like Department of Truth from James or Silver Coin from Michael Walsh. Um, Ice Cream Man, like is, massive. And I feel like, that you're still seeing that. You go to the even more independent market, Charles Burns just finally had the collected edition. It all came out in French. So I have like 3 of these volumes in French of his comics that I can't read. And they finally published it in English. But his new book is like, and so there's, I don't know, I think I am curious to see in the next, um, 4 years if there's more of a drive towards comics that have a little bit more sense of hope and optimism to them. You can kind of look back at history where, during World War II, the superhero comics boom was sort of because people were craving, um, hope, or just, a sense of innate goodness in people. And I think now I wonder if this is again anecdotal, but I do wonder if maybe horror or maybe some more challenging ideas are, um, you know, not left, but there's maybe a skew in the market towards people sort of needing things that can give them a sense of everything's going to be all right to it. But that's I don't. That's who knows.
Yeah, that's a great point. We do live in cyclical like modes in comic book, and so in production, and that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about it. I wonder if we'll revert into a positivity cycle, because I know that happened in the 90s, right, where we had the Dark Knight and things like that were really jaw dropping for folks, and then we kind of sat in there for a while, especially in the indie arena. But now we're starting to see, a mesh of like Disney like with zombie horror. It's like, whoa, okay, this is interesting. How about you, Caitlyn and Adrian? What are your thoughts about where the fans are at this moment in time? Do you think that where the indie genre or the themes are coming?
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I do see a little bit of the superhero stuff coming back, the teams, but I think we need a little more like real human interaction with the team members, and not just like getting along or not, or as simple as disagreeing. But I enjoy the ones where they're all sleeping with each other. They're all, they're really, it's like, oh man, this team's doing it. They're behind, while the capes, the capes come off, and I feel like that's a great wrench to throw into the machine of like, and then when they come out of the building there, everybody's, then nobody knows what's going on in the secret layer, and I kind of like that. I like that type of drama a little bit. If it is now a superhero team of some sort.
Yeah, that reminds me of Olming's Powers. I feel like that was the impetus of like the superhero and just the frailties of it. Even before that, though, right? We had other creatives doing it on the indie area, but yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah,
Caitlin,
with the big ones, every now and then you get a little risque, like Wonder Woman and Batman getting a little too close, or maybe sneaking in a peck or something. And it really wasn't the drama that I think everybody was longing for. I think the independent titles do it a
yeah,
little bit better.
yeah, yeah. Caitlin, how about you? What do you think? What have you seen genre-wise where people are headed towards, or maybe your predictions?
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I think that Tyler was onto something there about the cyclical nature of the moods of books or not books, but like any sort of media. Um, when things are going really well in the world, it seems like that's when you get some of your darker stories, and when things are really looking grim, you need things that are uplifting because people just can't handle more darkness, and I felt the same way. Like, I mean, I think Ted Lasso came out around 2020, and everybody was just like, oh, thank God, we just need something to like feel good about, and like, feel like there's humanity and kindness in the world. And I think that same thing is happening in maybe in comics. I mean, FML was amazing, and that's it's I mean, it's still coming out, but Kelly Sue's book came out the same day as mine, and I read hers, and it was just fucking phenomenal. And but it also had this kind of really sweet, all the sweet relationships between the family members, and this kind of lightheartedness, even though there was dark themes in there. It was just like it was a mix, but it wasn't doomsday-ish. It wasn't like depressing. It was really uplifting in the end. And so like, or not in the end, but so far. And I think we need that. And it's, yeah. And I also wonder about, I mean, again, I don't know anything, but like, how people talk about how manga is so huge, right? And how do we tap into that vibe and into that market, and try to get people as excited about manga? And I don't know if we can. I mean, I wonder if it's a cultural thing. And but I wonder about that. Like, Ice Cream Man has been going on for a while, right? And it seems like people really like long form stuff, even if it's not big too. So I wonder if that's one of the things that, like, there's one long series that you can really get into and kind of sink your teeth into. I wonder if that's something that, it's hard to make that happen, because especially with like new writers like myself, like, they're taking a chance with you, so they don't want to they don't want to give you like 16 issues, 20 issues. They want to give you like 4, because they're just like, we don't know you don't know like, we don't know how people are going to take this. So but I wonder about that, if people like the long form stuff, because even like television has made such a resurgence in the last 10 years, because people love having something that they can hold on to for years at a time.
Yeah. Seems like we have a lot to fix and or promote in the new year. I'm kind of with you, Tyler. I think a lot of the conversations that we're having today, especially with like the traditional like gritty superhero just darkness, is kind of been like a place of I guess solemnness for some folks. But what about the other stories that we could possibly tell that will do the same, but also uplift and do something positive? I hadn't thought about that. Probably because we're still in the genre currently in that space. Maybe that's what sells as well. Um, as folks on the inside and what you've seen, what are some of the challenges that you all come across that most people may or may not know about the indie industry?
Just say, I feel lucky that my image book Furthest Place, that we're on issue 22, but it is a thing where the financials are real. While you have the ability to kind of do whatever you want and tell the stories you want to do, it's incumbent upon you to promote the book, create the team, create the story, do the day job, reach out to retailers and try, how can I help you sell this book? Reach out to, if you want to be on awards list or whatever, you need to be making sure you're sending in copies of your book on these deadlines. You have to be doing the convention circuit. You got to be doing it. So there's so much a part of the job that has nothing to do with creating the book. And it's just, you also have to be not only the actor, the set designer, and the writer, you also have to be the entire PR campaign on top of the things. And it is a little bit crimey. I still get to do what I think is the coolest job in the world, but it is sometimes things where you're like, man, at the end of the day of 12 hours at the drawing board, and then I got to do another 2.5 of promo, and then I would just like to hang out with my dog one night instead. So it's there's challenges, but that's it is a sort of to an extent it's, I don't want to say champagne problems, but it is it's the thing that I don't think people know, even as you get to having a page rate or the books and things paid for. There's a lot more than just doing the book. It's there's a lot of just things that come around with it.
How about you, Caitlyn?
Yeah, I mean, not to keep echoing, I totally agree. I feel like marketing and PR is the hardest thing because you're doing all the other, and the other stuff is so hard. Making the whole comic is so hard by itself that you're just like, wait, and I got to do this other stuff. Like you thought that you were like, once you do the book, you're passing it on. Especially if you have like a publisher that they take it and they do their thing and their magic, and everybody knows these publishers that so there's some way that everyone's going to figure out, like find out about your book. But I just don't know if there's not enough money in comics in general for marketing teams everywhere, and they just don't have the resources. And I mean they've done Dark Horse has done it, they've done they're working real hard, they're doing a lot. So I think that it's just like there's just not quite enough to go around, and they need you to help out. And so it's just like I made my own trailer, and I'm glad I have a background in games because it made me I was able to make my own trailer. But like it was it was frustrating because I was just like I'm still drawing. Like, I still have other stuff to do. Like I can't and also like then it matters how many followers you have, because if you're going to be helping to market, then you need to make sure that other people are seeing it. And it's just like you're like, should I hire and should I find some kind of like marketing people? How does that work? And then you're spending money on that. So it's just like, yeah, that's definitely the biggest hurdle for me, I think, is just trying to get eyes on it, because it's such a saturated market. There's so many things coming out, and you just need to get people's attention. And I think also trying to get new people in is like insane, because have you tried to tell a person who doesn't read comics, like, okay, find your local comic book shop, give them a ring, ask them what's coming out. Oh no, tell them the order number of this one book, and then make sure you get it by the FOC date. You have to explain FOC, and then you have to be like, and you got to keep on top of that every month. Well, I mean, you might have a pull list. Let's play a pull list, and then you got to be like, okay, now remember that this is when you have to come in to pick up this book, and like it's just crazy. Like it's almost like we're trying to not get like we're working against ourselves, So I mean, I'm not a big fan of direct market, but I don't have any business experience, so I can't be like that's bad. It's just that I'm like, how do you like when in an era where we're making everything easier to be bought, like in every way, in every other industry, it feels like we're just stuck in the same like you got to do this, and you got to do that, and then you got to do that, and people's brains are just we don't have the attention span, So that's also another hurdle. Is just trying to get people engaged and to be able to follow through, I think.
Yeah, all those hats seem almost as if the hairline keeps pushing back and back, further back, the more hats that you put on. That's insane. Yeah, and for those who obviously you working with publishers, I could imagine folks who are self-publishing, that's even more of a task. I know a lot of them have issues with just the talent and keeping that consistency within their books, and that can be a draw for folks, right? And also can be a deterrent when folks are waiting too long for a book to come out. And so, so on and so forth. So Adrian, as a collector, hearing that, is that eye-opening? You kind of have been in the industry and kind of in that artistic area, but is that something that like rings true to you and like where you are as a collector?
I see that with a lot of my clients as a graphic designer. They're all band, they bring out a new song, uh, and they realize that they have to push it. They have to push it themselves. They can put it on Bandcamp. They can put it on on the streaming sites so everybody can hear it. But if they don't get the word out, then nobody's going to hear it, and they have to do a lot of the legwork. I'm there to help a lot of them with some marketing things, but a lot of times I've told them, and I think Caitlin, you do this a lot. You show your process, you show a sketch that you're working on, you'll show a half done piece, and I enjoy that. And even as an artist, my small fan base loves to see just me drawing something or watch me draw from the beginning to halfway or beginning to end. They love that type of process. So I tell a lot of my clients, band members, to film themselves in the studio, show them mixing or mastering or whatever they do, show that process. And I think that's a big winner right there is the process. People have even told me that we love to watch the process. So uh and I don't, there's no manual out there, and I think you're not the only ones, suffering. I think small businesses all around the at least coast to coast here realize that they have to be their own marketer, they have to be their own social media manager, they have to keep up with the website and do all that type of stuff. So I think that's part of the American dream.
Mhm.
Maybe a little bit the so-called American dream is when you go out there and you're starting to make a living or do something that you actually love for a living. You're like, oh, there's more hats that I do have to wear. Uh, and there's multiple hats, there's it's not just one and you switch on to another one. It's like, oh man, you really got to psych yourself up for doing some of the tasks that you have to do. Making a video is hard. Making a trailer, that's 3 hours maybe minimum of sitting there in front of your computer or on your phone trying to make a video. It's really difficult. So yeah.
Yeah, the job description for you all is literally da 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 da, and then duties as assigned. So that duties as assigned is kind of like the undertow, I guess, the under definition of that work that you have to put in order to books have books fly off the shelves and eventually hopefully hit the another market where you can actually get option for a movie and so on and so forth. So that's the American dream, I guess, part due. You saw what I did there, Tyler? I went straight French right there. um, so for folks who might be aspiring to be indie creatives or artists or writers, so on and so forth within this space, what would you say is the formula, or what would be some good advice around like building a sustainable career in the comic book industry as a indie or an artist, period? What are some things, some nuggets that you could drop about what they should be planning to do ahead of schedule so that they can kind of wrap their heads around things like duties as assigned or deadlines or just even the social media space, which is a whole nother beast altogether?
Um, I guess the advice I'll give, and I think this is more creative advice, but I think you can kind of apply it to every part of the industry. Is you know when Caitlin or me are drawing, I'm assuming we just where it's you kind of you start with the big shape, 1,000-foot view as far as you can go, and I think when you're a new creative, you can tend to uh, get really myopic really fast, and you sort of try to instead of looking at the whole block of marble, you're going to start chiseling the toenail on the bottom. And what you actually need to do is you need a 1,000-foot view and slowly, what's the how to draw thing where it's like you draw a circle and then you draw another line and then the thing is like next step is like and then draw the rest of the fucking owl or whatever, where it's like, but it is that slow build up process where it's like, you know I know a lot of people or students I've met with before where they want to tell their big grand space opera, or they want to tell this massive fantasy epic set in a crazy world that they built from a D&D campaign into this thing, and like that's all well fine and good, but like why don't we maybe do a little 4-page story that's set in that world, as opposed to try and tell your thing. And so just, I think, starting with manageable expectations and building slowly, that's the name of the game. It's just, there's a term called kaizen, which means just a little bit better every day. And that's just every day, just try to do a little bit and a little bit. And, as you continue on that process, you get to turn around and look, oh crap, like look at all this stuff. And so it's, there was I'll tell one more quick story, which is just like there was a publisher, a cartoonist named Chuck Forsman, used to run a little imprint called Oily Comics, and they were just like literally 8.5 by 11 computer paper, 12 pages folded over, and you could buy them for $1. And he would just publish tons of people's comics, and they were just do them in, could even be serialized where there'd be 10 issues. But if you can draw just 12 pages, or not 12 pages a year, what is it? What was the math on it? No, sorry. If you can draw 10 pages a month and then do that for 12 months, you have a 120-page book at the end of the year. And so if you can just look at things as like a manageable chunk and things like that, like it can get rid of the sort of daunting nature that is like looking like, oh God, all the work I have to do. Sorry, that was like a bunch of stories that hopefully added up to something.
No, I actually use that term in my 9 to 5 and in my creative space. The chunking of things helps you attain what you want to do. And we get an analysis paralysis so many times, or even the production halts that occur because it's not perfect. And so just being able to at least have that formula, really chunking it out, really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I 100% agree with all of that. I think, again, like managing your expectations. I mean, if you had a nickel for every person you knew who had an idea for a comic and it was something epic and super long and just like lived in their head for 2 decades, I think it's true that if you start with something small and manageable, it will kickstart you into making comics. Like you have to, they say like the best way to get into comics is to make comics, and it sounds so obvious, but it's really true because you can really get stuck in the idea stage. I've been there. When I wanted to write, I had all these ideas that I would just write for like years and years. I had all these ideas, and I was just paralyzed by the idea of going from that to something real, And when I got that Boom gig, which was crazy, by the way, it was a Buffy the Vampire Slayer story. It was 10 pages, and I thought I was just going to be drawing it. And they were like, "Okay, so what are your ideas for the story?" And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, you're writing it." And I was like, "Oh God!" But it was like the perfect thing for me to get into writing, or to get me excited about writing, because it was, first of all, I am a huge Buffy nerd and I know like everything about that universe. So I was like, I had this idea and this idea and this idea. I had like 20 things. I was like, how about these? And they're like, well, okay, how about this one? And so it was great because it was 10 pages. I had to cut everything that I had in there that was not necessary to make the story go. And I realized that this was like a doable thing. I think like a 10-page story is like a perfect way to get into creating comics, because it's like you have to cut all the fat out. You have to like figure out what's the most efficient way to tell a story from beginning to end. And the thing about details, Tyler, is totally true. Like, I taught one class at RIT, and after I graduated, and I think that was one of the things that I noticed the most about college students in art school, is that they love to draw the eyelashes and the eyebrows and the little reflection, the pupils. And it's like, that's great. That's fun. But the not fun part is the blocking out the big sections. And like, I almost want to have a class where people are not allowed to do any details of any kind in any of their art. Just do blocking out, just figure out how composition works. Just, like look at other artists and see how they block things. Mike Mignola is the perfect example of that to me. Like, if you look at his pages, it's graphic design more than anything else. Like, you're going from here down to here, and it's beautiful, and there's almost no detail, but it's perfect, so all of that is true. What was the question again?
No, just what advice would you give folks for a sustainable career in industry, really?
Yeah, I think I did that. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Sorry. No, this is awesome. I think what you all have displayed and kind of translated is that there are so many needs and wants in the field, and whether you're starting off and you're really aspirational all the way to the most seasoned of folks, there's that place where you have to just get it done, and you have to actually have a good group of folks that you really vibe with as well, that will challenge you and trust you as well, whether you're in the publishing arena or even if you're self-publishing or in the indie realm. I'm thankful for you all, because we get to see y'all in the indie publishing space to do whatever the heck you want, and really span out your stories, and really share with us like what the challenges and the pluses. I think that that you all have been able to produce at the level that you have is phenomenal. So I know we're at the tail end of the show, but I feel like we have 5 million questions left to ask. But one of the biggest questions I would love to ask you all, outside of your books, which everybody should buy as soon as you see this, and make sure you follow, but could you tell us what maybe your social media where people can follow you? And also, what other artists are you, indie artists, or books that you are reading or have read that are your favorites? And we'll start with Caitlyn. Why don't we start with you?
Sure. It's just Caitlyn Yarsky. It's my full name. It's my handle for Blue Sky and Instagram. I'm not on X anymore or Facebook. As far as indies, I mean, my favorite this year has just been FML because it's just phenomenal. And I guess, yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome. But you probably don't have time to dive deep into other stuff as well.
No, I really don't. I mean, other artists, there's people I love that some are in comics, some are not in comics. I love like Carla Ortiz, but she does like Magic the Gathering right now and stuff like that. I love like Ian McHugh. I love Greg Ticini, James Herron. Like, there's people from all over the place, so it's kind of a mess. But yeah.
Yeah. I wish I was rich so I could buy every single book of my favorites, because I'm broke right now. So, Tyler, how about you?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram. It's at Tyler Patrick Boss. My Blue Sky, I think, is just Tyler Boss. And then my Twitter is a graveyard that is Boy Cartoonist, but I don't use it anymore. And for books that I'm excited about and picking up, Precious Metal from Ian Bertram and Darcy just wrapped. I think that's out from Image. Ian is, I think, one of the most visually striking artists working today. And that book is the culmination of his work from the past, I want to say 5 years. So to see the sort of culmination of it is exciting. He doesn't need my help promoting his book, but I'll do it anyways, because I think I read the first 5 issues and I think it's great. But Assorted Crisis Events from Dennis Camp and Eric Zwizicki is coming out from Image at the beginning of March. It's a great sort of, it's Crisis on Infinite Earths, but if it was happening to normal people. And each issue is sort of its own its own story, start to finish, so where you could pick up issues. When I've read it, I accidentally read the second issue first and didn't know until I read the first issue. So it's a fun sort of bend into formalism a bit of comics. Eric's doing some really interesting things, different styling of page layout on every single issue that's specific to the story that Dennis is bringing. And then he would not want me to promote his book, but Matt Rosenberg also has a book coming out the same week as me at the end of March, called We're Taking Everyone Down With Us. And it's super fun. It's basically like if Dr. No from James Bond's daughter decided she was gonna, with one of his killer robots, was gonna, take down MI6 and, the CIA and all the supervillains with her. So it's a fun revenge sort of 60s throwback retro futurism thing. So yeah, check those ones out.
That's awesome.
Oh, in my book. And
yeah, of course. That's another area I will say in the indie community, it's very tight as far as like, especially with your friendship circles and the artists and creatives. I just think it's awesome that you all give each other props and also help sell each other's books, which is awesome. So that's another caveat or piece to the puzzle that I think most people don't acknowledge, and especially when you all are in the same boat, basically, and making sure that you get as successful as possible. So, Adrian, what about you, Mr. Indy?
Said I'm currently reading a DC title at the moment. That's absolutely amazing. It's from the Black Label, but Batman, City of Madness, Christian Ward, absolutely beautiful, beautiful illustrations. The colors are just spot on. Story is pretty cool. I'm only about halfway done with it, but it's what I picked up this morning. I don't know if it's new or old, but Outer Banks was one that I just picked up not too long ago, and I absolutely loved it. A little kind of space pirate kind of thing going on. Again, everybody's looking to double cross the next person. But artist wise, I have been into collecting Jay Gonzo covers lately. He does a lot of uh, Mexican heritage, kind of Dia de los Muertos type of stuff lately, and I'm really digging that. I love it when people bring their culture. You can see their cultures just right there on the page. I love that about him. But
Awesome.
yeah, I don't know. I have so many titles in my head, but just go out there. I say go to your public library. There's more there than you think. If you're broke like the rest of us and you can't afford every single book, you'd be surprised on what your local public library has.
It's funny. I will spend $7 on a great book. I especially if I know it's going to be killer, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very strategic when it comes to picking my books and making sure that I'm looking, especially with indie artists, making sure that I'm supporting them, because we know the struggle's real. It's hard, especially in the LCSs, to get your book out, and at cons. I mean, you're basically selling at your table. You're also doing commission work, all that stuff that goes with it. The duties as assigned, as we talked about. My books that I will put out there, and I promise not to. It's a long list, but I've been able to have the privilege of either meeting some of these folks, but I definitely Blackula, which I believe was Rodney Barnes actually put out with Jason Sean Alexander. And it's a freaking crazy rendition of the old school blaxploitation. I believe it was Eisner nominated as well, and I think Jason Sean Alexander. If you want to check out, yeah, Jason and I hadn't noticed. I mean, I knew about Rodney, but Rodney's been in the business for like I don't know how many years, writing in film and industry. But that Blackula is an insane book. It's a thick trade paperback as well. And Monsters by Mark Spears, which hopefully will get him on as well. He's been very, his artwork reminds me of Alex Ross, but it has a little grittier feel to it. And he's pretty good. So the Monsters franchise under Keen Spot, which is a good indie. It's a good indie book as well. And Ice Cream Man, I'm old school. Gen X, the whole Twilight Zone thing. I grew up on that. That was one of my deals. So I like the Ice Cream Man, the Creep Show connection there, where you're telling a different story. You don't have to feel like you missed out on anything. So these are just a few of the samplings that my friends here and myself have kind of invested in. I hope you all venture out, find out everything you can, because we just gave you a medley of things, but follow these two amazing creatives, Tyler Boss, dope name, by the way, and Caitlyn Yarsky. Just their work is superb and phenomenal. So make sure that you're following them on all their socials and everything that is good. Make sure you support them. I really want to thank the guests here. Thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you, Tyler and Caitlyn, for joining me on the GenX show. And folks, check out all the videos. We got all types of stuff. The con is coming up soon, and I'll be joining forces with some other folks. And check out my magazine will be coming out soon. So just follow me on GenX_comics. With that said, thank you all, panel. I appreciate you all. And I hope y'all have a great holiday break. This is the Gen X show. Again, peace out and have a great holiday.